had to do. This is a hill worth dying on.
So, tell me your name and what you do for a living.
My name is David Johnson. I'm a packaging engineer for Hasbro currently.
And why did you decide to come to Project Veritas?
I decided to come to Project Veritas because I opposed the indoctrination of children that they wanted to push. And I felt that more people needed to know about it.
How are they indoctrinating children?
They are attempting to covertly push CRT, critical race theory, through branding and messaging through their products.
Explain what we're looking at here.
This is the program developed by the Conscious Kid, which is working with Hasbro. I'm not sure exactly to what extent, but this is their program to teach children about, well, teach is a strong word, but they want to introduce children into racial bias at an early age before they're really able to understand what race and racism is.
Is this a mandatory all-hands training?
Yes, this meeting was attended by, well, you can see at least 44 people. I remember it being more on my screen, but it was mandatory for me.
How much do you know about this nonprofit which developed the training on this? This is the Conscious Kid. Tell us about that.
This was actually the first time I'd heard of them was this meeting. Following it, I did a bit of research. I know they work with a few other very, very large corporations, like I believe they work with Google, the NFL, Nickelodeon, who's also a big partner with Hasbro.
No, Hasbro isn't the only heavy hitter, are
No.
they? As you mentioned, they work with the NFL, Players Association, MGM, Nickelodeon, and
YouTube.
And YouTube.
That's a large share of like the market for children's entertainment. Like Hasbro itself is already a huge company because they have like everything from My Little Pony to Transformers. But YouTube is almost like the main hub where people go for entertainment now. If they're using YouTube to push this ideology, then that's going to have very, very far reach and very wide implications.
You sent this tape to...
Perfect example of a chocolate-covered Edomite. Kal halal Yahweh b'Hashem Yahushai b'Hashem Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom Yasharallah. You know, when I first saw this episode of Project Veritas, I thought to myself, another chocolate-covered white boy who doesn't know what time it is. Then I thought he might be a plant to push the alternate narrative, you know, the far right one, to counter the left that says CRT is a Democrat agenda and the idea of systemic racism as it exists is being blown way, 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 way out of proportion. Now let's get this straight. As far as politics and political parties go, we here at Great Millstone don't have a horse in that race. Ergo, we don't subscribe to any political party. Furthermore, there is no such thing as democracy, and voting is an illusion. America is not only a business, it is a $1 trillion corporation, at least according to the numbers on the screen anyways. America is a $1 trillion entity. Do you think the powers that be, who look to spiritual wickedness in high places for their support, would leave any real life-changing decisions in which direction the corporation is going in the hands of people stupid enough to believe in the vote, trust in a government that systematically lies to them, encroaches on their supposed privacy, rights, freedoms, and liberties by the minute, daily, who can't see past the fact that the CV-19 is nothing more than a seasonal flu with a battery pack, and despite that would still take an unapproved by the FDA jab anyways. Do you really think those in power would willingly give you the means to remove them from power? Now, that wouldn't be power now, would it? Bunch of jab takers. Micah 2:1 says this: woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in their power of their hand. With man, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Here in the Hebrew, power is defined as El, or properly Allah, meaning the elite rulership of Esau has godlike power. Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Who else in present day has the means and the ability to act on their wicked devisings at will? I mean, Bill Gates doesn't have a medical degree or a license to practice yet. Because he is the largest private contributor, he has, quote unquote, an outsized influence over the World Health Organization's agenda, which means his priorities are the WHO's priorities. And instead of strengthening healthcare amongst the most impoverished of countries, which would help to control outbreaks, his efforts now are the WHO's efforts and are focused on immunization, which is I believe is at the top of the list, right there with knocking out polio indefinitely. Isaiah 3:11, woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, pun intended, for the reward of his hands shall be given him. I digress, but the point I was making is, even in alternative news now, they've found a way to make you buy into the political dichotomy. Dichotomy meaning a division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different. Remember when so-called truthers could care less about political agendas? Left wing, right wing, all being run by the same bird brains behind the curtain, and the reason why they are constantly pushing this agenda is simply to have any power that might oppose them divided. Being that America is the rebirth of the pagan Roman Empire pursuant to Revelation, the 13th chapter, this of course is reminiscent of the two-pronged system in ancient Rome. The plebeians and the patricians set up in like manner to appease the people. Esau's, who is the so-called white man's government of the earth, is the same as it's ever been, a succession of kingdoms, basically a reincarnation of his past rulerships. Revelation 13:11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. The dragon was and is the rule of ancient Rome through the power of the spiritual demon Satan. That is the international banker's power on high. The beast coming out of the earth is America. The horns are its rulers. The present day dichotomy is the Republicans and, of course, the Democrats. Now, lambs are known to be peaceful and meek in nature, meaning America's rulership appears harmless, but is covert in its true intentions. Hence the description of it speaking like a dragon. To speak like a dragon is also in reference to Esau's draconian laws and measures, his unjust laws and harsh penalties for breaking them. I really think this is why the blue team picked up on critical race theory, not because they support it, but so the red team would be presented with a premise to oppose it and weaken support against doing away with what is increasingly obvious. Society and rule and the system of government was set up on systemic racism. In other words, to keep so-called blacks and browns powerless and marginalized. Anywho, what struck me about this piece was Mr. Johnson, who is an admitted employee of Hasbro and has decided to lay it all on the line. Lay it all on the line, David. Against CRT, but said nothing about Hasbro's indoctrination of young children with My Little Pony or the numerous accusations that Hasbro has been sexualizing their toys. Matter of fact, let's watch this clip.
I wanted to do a quick video because I find this disturbing and I find it something that needs to be shared. As you all know, stuff that's been going on in the world about the sex trafficking in kids and things that are thrown in our kids' faces to kind of groom them and make them kind of a little bit more oblivious to things that are really happening. So it was my daughter's birthday a couple days ago, and she turned 2, and she was given this gift. It's like a little Poppy doll. It's adorable. And here's the box. So she had a Poppy birthday, and so they gave her this. It's just from the new movie, The Trolls World Tour. On the box, it says Giggle and Sing Poppy. on the back, it says that if you push her tummy right here, sorry, it's glaring. If you push her tummy right here, she makes 10 phrases and sounds. And that's all it talks about. And it comes with a little comb. So, I mean, she does all that. You touch her tummy and she makes little singing sounds and she's super cute. Well, I was showing her to my husband and I heard some other sounds that I had never heard before. And if you look down here, I figured a video was the best way. So I just touched her tummy and she's gonna sing for a minute. But down here is a button right here on her privates. And if you push those, she makes these sounds. Like a gasping sound. And I know some of you may not think this is a big deal, but especially since I've had kids, this is wrong. For one, this button, it says nothing about this button on the box. Nothing. It's just there. And it makes a gasping sound when you touch her privates. And to me, it's just like sexual sounds, and it's so disturbing.
Let's get this. This is Galatians chapter 5, verse 18, and it reads, "This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh," meaning to rehearse and commit to righteous acts, ergo spiritual things that strengthen the spirit. We walk in the Spirit knowing we're Hebrew Israelites, a chosen and special people unto the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahweh and his Son's name is Yahushua. Verse 17, "For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary to the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would." And the elite rulers of the world, they know this. This is why they attempt to indoctrinate you at a young age. The number one tool being television. That's why they call it a TV program. You're being sat down at the same specific hour every day for reinforcement. Who don't remember Saturday morning cartoons? To be programmed by the elite witches and warlocks in Hollywood and the demons that run the entertainment industry, dealing enchantments and all workings of witchcraft. Incidentally, entertainment means to enter, join from within, tain meaning to hold, ment meaning mind, to go into and join from within and hold your mind. And nothing captivates the young mind more than sex. Who don't remember playing hide and go get it or asking, where do babies come from? Right? For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. Ergo, the things of the flesh is in constant battle with things of the Spirit. You have to be mindful of what you invoke or take into your spirit. I say it all the time, you are what you eat. Let's jump down to verse 19. "Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication." Fornication from the Greek word porneia, where you get the word pornography, of course, speaking to the practice of adultery, harlotry, and incest. It does not mean premarital sex. Anybody teaching that does not know the Bible. Uncleanness, lasciviousness, meaning lewdness and debauchery. The elites have been using sex magic in the form of advertisement for a long time now. You hear it all the time. Sex sells. So when I hear Mr. Johnson all up in arms about CRT and racism being taught to young people, which is total nonsense, because so-called people of color do not have the economic power to change the reality of the whites ruling class. We have the means, but we lack the sense of unity needed, dare I say the mental fortitude to buy and sell black-owned, so-called black-owned, because, the truth be told, we are still under the curses of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, starting at the 15th verse. In fact, since white as a race was wrote into legislation in 1681, it has always been the other way around. The so-called white man is the economic force, and he who has the money not only rules, he makes the rules and has the power to enforce them. I had to wonder to myself why you ain't petitioning for the or petitioning against Salakia, the young impressionable minds being bombarded by the covert sexual messaging and the illicit images being put together by these pedophiles and sexual sadists who employ you, Dave. I'm wondering, and when I listen to you speak, I come to the realization you never knew what it was, and more importantly, what it is. In any event, something else that stood out in my mind was what he said about YouTube. Let's play that back.
But YouTube is almost like the main hub where people go for entertainment now. If they're using YouTube to push this ideology, then that's going to have very, very far reach and very wide implications.
You sent this tape.
Let's get this, because I've been wanting to say this about YouTube's reach and why so many flock to it for a long time now. This is Zechariah 10 and 2. We'll start at 1. And for those who are able to receive it, bear with me here. And it reads, Ask ye of the Lord, whose name is Yahweh, rain in the time of the latter rain. So the Lord shall make bright clouds and give them showers of rain to everyone, grass in the field. And that rain is the knowledge of this truth coming out. Verse 2, For the idols from your social media to your podcasts, to your YouTube personalities, to your actors, your musicians and celebrities, even your radio personalities, Salakia, they are the new idols, have spoken vanity, and the diviners, your so-called sages and learned men, have seen a lie and have told false dreams. Like, number one false dream out there is America will rebound and return strong as ever. That's not going to happen. They comfort in vain, therefore they went their way as a flock. They were troubled, speaking of you Israelites, because there was no shepherd, meaning they strayed from the truth within because they didn't have the men of the Lord to bring it out. They didn't have the way back to Yahweh, starting with Yahweh Shah. As you read on in this chapter, you realize it speaks to the restoration of Judah and Israel, but I couldn't help but think about that flock that would continue to go astray and ultimately be lost if not for the men of the Lord, starting with the other apostles on down, utilizing YouTube to bring out this truth. Of course, all being made possible by the power and spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rakak. Of course. I say YouTube because there is no farther reach than YouTube. And for those of you who look into words, specifically how Esau plays with them, then you know the you Esau was really speaking about when he formulated the name was the ewe, a female sheep, because to E, we are nothing more than sheep waiting to get fucked. Some have said it speaks to the yew tree, which we know is linked to folklore and superstition and sacred to pagans and druids and those who conspire against the Most High. Again, don't take my word for it. Do your own research, but that is the scripture that just came to mind, and it was just, I had to bring that out. Let's close with this. For those of you unfamiliar with Project Veritas, I'll put a link in the description box. Should be able to find it yourself on YouTube, though, but I'll try to link it to this episode if I can. This is Isaiah chapter 47. We'll start at verse 9. And it reads, But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, and that perfection is the nuclear missiles. For the multitude of thy sorceries, ergo Babylon, which is America, got its power, as I said, from the demon Satan. And for the great abundance of thine enchantments, which I've given examples of all throughout this video. Verse 10, For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, None seeth me. Speaking of elite rulership behind the curtains, the puppet masters who pull the strings to your government leaders, those who belong to secret societies like the Illuminati, which is, manners of evil being worked on the left-hand side of the Lord, as well as America's covert operations and secret agendas they implement via order out of chaos, and problem reaction solution known as Hegelian dialectics. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge it hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. And that brings to mind Sirach 19 and 22, the knowledge of wickedness is not wisdom. Isaiah 47 and 11 says this, therefore shall evil come upon thee. Job 20:22, by the way, says, this will take place in the fullness of his sufficiency, meaning his new world order. Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee. Thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee, suddenly, which thou shalt not know. The pestilence and plagues that is about to hit Esau, he will have no choice whatsoever but to acknowledge it is the judgment of the Lord. That evil is speaking of the chariots, the lasers, and the missiles. Oh my. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. You over here worried about CRT, which isn't a theory, it's a proven fact. The socio-economic, religio-political status quo has always been under the rule of the so-called white man. What part of the Western Hemisphere do you live in, Dave? You worried about CRT and not that witch's coven you work for named Hasbro. It has you, bro. That's what's going on. Using magic and enchantments to twist the minds of children too young to make conscious decisions for themselves. America was founded on Masonic principles, and this speaks to its laws and statutes, even its infrastructure, being based on the workings of witchcraft. The main factory of enchantments is Hollywood. Hollywood being the magic wand used by the Druids in more ancient times. This is how Esau has enchanted the minds of the body politic. Those who subscribe to it will see if that magic can save you in these end times. Isaiah 47 and 13. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. Esau, you 2/3 of Israel, and you other nations are clueless. You really have no idea what the Lord is about to do to this place. What is about to transpire can't be avoided by the advice of a palm reader or your daily horoscope. But believe me when I tell you, this revelation will be televised. Call halal Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai B'Shem Rakakwadash through the power and spirit. I hope you were edified. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach it's 100% truth and rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom Yasharallah. Remember, no test, no jab. And even you, Dave, because you might be an Israelite, make damn sure when the time presents itself, don't take that chip. Shalom.